I'm very happy to be here. Paul asked me to come and talk to you guys about love and purpose today. And speaking for me can be a little nerve-wracking. You can feel very vulnerable up here. In fact, that's the whole idea, is to be vulnerable. Paul saw me speak in Portland, and I was definitely very vulnerable there. I was a last-minute speaker replacement at a creative conference. I think they asked me to fill in about 2 days before the conference. So expectations were tremendously low. I didn't have time to really prepare anything, so I thought, what the hell, I'm just going to go speak from the heart and see what happens. And it worked out okay, and when Paul said, hey, just do that thing again, I thought, I can do that. And then fears and doubts set in. And I thought to myself, is what I have to say, is it worthwhile, and is it good enough for a TED event? Has anybody here ever had any fears or self-doubts? You guys laugh when I said that. That's very reassuring. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. But it was too late. I'd already said yes. And then after I said yes, I got the title of the conference, which was Leaps and Boundaries. And I had no idea of whether what I had to say had anything to do with leaps and boundaries. In fact, I'd never really thought about leaps and boundaries, but I'd already committed. And now I was really getting nervous. And so I did what you do when you are on the path and you can't turn around and go back and you're scared to death, which is I reached out for help from my friends. I specifically reached out to 3 wizards in my life. These 3 wizards, Tom Walters, Mark Barden, and Brian Lanahan. Mark and I came and did a conference in Bend once. Some of you guys may know Mark, and you may know some of those other guys too. And I said to them, I didn't tell them I was speaking. I just said, leaps and boundaries. What does it conjure to you? And I didn't give them any context. And like good friends, they responded right away. And Tom said 2 things. Pragmatic optimism, thrusting forward with faith and clarity of focus. Thrusting forward with the awareness and intention to navigate and negotiate challenges. Brian said, calls to mind leaps and bounds, which conjures images of fast greyhounds rocketing over hurdles, speed that can't be held back. Boundaries imply something firmer, though, more fixed and immutable, something you can't just jump over but must respect and negotiate with. So I was already seeing some themes between what the 2 of them said. Combine that with leaps, and I get exuberant energy that's channeled. Now, Mark, it's funny. I talk to Mark all the time, and I'd been talking to him about a project that I was working on for this nonprofit that deals with schools. And so when I asked him about leaps and boundaries, he assumed it was about my project. So he said, a lot that's good about what those education people are trying to encourage, getting kids to stretch themselves is the leap. Play a new game. Try joking with a new team, etc. And boundaries is about how to do this right, respectfully, fair, etc. Games, like life, has rules. They're helpful. They facilitate the leaping if everyone pays attention to them. And then he added a little undeserved encouragement. He said, nice, you're good. He thought I came up with that title. So with that, with that undeserved encouragement, which is just as good as regular encouragement, I decided, what the hell? And here I am to talk to you about leaps and boundaries. So, when I think about leaps and boundaries, I think about this space, this little pink X that's right in the middle of where we are and what we know is not working and what we know to be possible. That tension zone, that boundary. And we don't really want to be where we are. We want to be where we aren't. And that zone in the middle there, Parker Palmer calls it the tragic gap. It's a very fertile place. It's a place of a lot of tension. Tom Walters called it a place of creative tension, where to stand there, it takes courage, because you have to stand there with full humanity as well as full honesty. And in that place of tension is where new ideas emerge. So that if that pink X is the boundary, that's the leap. I also think about this map, this model. This is the spiral dynamics model. And it's a model of human growth and development. And it's based on the spiral, the form that surrounds us. The day this talk was due, Mia, a designer who works with me, who lives in South Africa, sent the studio this little package of these little spirals. And I thought, perfect, and took a picture, and I threw that in as the last slide. This spiral is around us everywhere. And what the spiral dynamics model suggests is that humans have this potential that's just unbelievable. Unbelievable what our potential is. And this model both maps the territory of our potential, and it also shows us a path on how we get there. And it was created as a pattern. It was the people who created this model. They took all the models of human development that really are in existence and put them on top of each other and said, what do they have in common? Well, they have a lot in common. And this model incorporates all the other models. And what I think is significant about it, and why I think about it today with leaps and boundaries, is that you'll see that pink line there. You can't tell that it's pink, but it's pink. And that's a boundary. And it's a boundary of a place where we're moving from one tier of thinking to a new tier of thinking. So all those other color-coded stages and levels that we've worked through have all been dependent on fundamental ideas that are going through a change right now. So the people who study this model believe that people are moving from the green section into the yellow section in significant numbers. And why that's significant is because these fundamental ideas are changing, and that with them, all of our systems and institutions will change with them. And the fundamental idea is going from a mindset that's based on scarcity. You've heard some people talk about scarcity and abundance today. It seems to be a theme. And so if Tier 1 thinking is based on scarcity, Tier 2 thinking is based on abundance. So the idea is either we don't have enough or we do have enough. And that fundamental idea shifts the way we think and operate and behave. And so along with scarcity, Tier 1 is held back by ideas like fear, because if there's not enough, then there's a fear that I might not get my share. And fear leads to separation, which is if there's not enough and not everybody's going to get their share, I want to make sure that I get my share. Or at least I want to make sure that the good people get their share and the bad people don't get their share, which of course leads to ideas like violence and power and control. Abundance brings with it a host of other beautiful ideas, which is generally a sense of wellness and wholeness and integrity and in love. So that's what I think about when I think about leaps and boundaries. The invitation to make this leap from Tier 1 to Tier 2, and we're all invited to take that leap. And the way we make that leap is by seeking out and discovering and living our purpose in our life. Purpose is a magical word, I think. It's a fairy tale word. It's a word of possibilities. It implies a quest. It implies calling. It implies that our life has significance. It implies that the world minus us is slightly incomplete, and the world with us is complete. Purpose is a powerful and a beautiful word. And seeking out and finding your purpose is really about seeking out and finding your story. I'm sure some people here recognize Joseph Campbell's model of the hero's story. And this is the map of how you find your purpose in finding your story. And for him, the pink line is the boundary between normal life and magical life. And the leap is the white circle line. And that's our story. And the way we take that leap is by saying yes to the adventure and by diving in. When you discover your purpose, you discover this source of power and unlimited energy. You become like a furnace, and possibilities open. So, the theme of this talk then is we are going through a transition. And the way to participate in that transition is to connect to your purpose. Now, done with part one. I can kind of rest for a second. Part two is, how do you connect to your purpose? That is something I've been asking since I was 4 years old. And that's the truth. I remember being about 3 or 4 and thinking, what the hell is going on? What is the world about? What is the world asking of me? How am I supposed to show up? Those are questions about purpose. So I've been struggling with this one. And I think I'm going to offer 3 ways to connect to your purpose. And the first is through silence. Through the silence that enables you to hear your own voice, through the wisdom that each of us has inside. That's why we meditate. That's why we try to turn the noise down, other people's noise and our noise. It's a little scary, but when you do that, you open yourself up to this space where you access a very deep wisdom that knows exactly what you need to be doing. So that's one way. A second way is through your eyes, through your vision, through what you see. What do you see that no one else sees? And then when you see that, then your purpose is to make it happen. I can think of a lot of examples of purpose-driven people who found their purpose through their vision. I think of Steve Jobs, who saw that a computer could be a tool for creative people, not just an analytic tool. And then his purpose was to make that happen. I think of Howard Schultz going into a cafe in Italy and seeing, wow, look at these people. And they are connecting and human. And wow, I think there's potential for this idea in America, to create a space where people can connect and bring their humanity out over coffee. And that became his work, and that became his purpose. I think of Jimmy Wales, who thought, you know what the internet would be good for? We could gather and connect all knowledge, and we can constantly improve it so that everybody adds what they know, and then we'll share it. So there'll be free knowledge to the entire earth, and people will do it as volunteers. We won't spend $1 on it. Amazing. So your eyes see something. What do you see? And then your purpose is to make that happen. So that's another way to connect to your purpose. A third way to connect to your purpose is through your heart, through what you love. What do you love? What do you love? Paul saw me talk about love. And love's incredible, right? When you love something, you do something. And you can do it endlessly. You can do it forever. And when you do something, it creates value to the world. So I drew a chart which is like, what do you love? What do you do? And then it creates all this abundance and it comes back to you. And in that talk, I described that as, I thought if everybody connected to what they loved, and that was how they created value in the world, was through manifesting their love for something, whatever it is, donuts, sewing, accounting, that I called that the love-based economy. But I think there are other words that could be used for it besides love-based. It could be called an abundance economy. So, that's where we are today. This idea that we are existing in this moment, a moment where something is about to be born where we are on the cusp of entering a new phase in our development as human beings, and that we're all invited to participate. And there's room for all of us, and the way to jump in is to connect to our purpose or our calling, and the way to do that is to ask deep questions of ourselves, such as, who am I? What do I see? Climb on top of that pyramid and see what you see. And what do I love? That pink X is the boundary, and this is a leap, and I think we're all invited to participate in it. Thank you.